All right, chapter 14 is sensory systems. So these are all your organs that can sense things about your environment. So very important stuff to know about. So first we see a stimulus. A stimulus is anything that's going to activate a action potential, like we learned in the nervous system, on your sensory endings. So you remember you have sensory neurons, interneurons, and motor neurons. So if it's enough of if it reaches the threshold, then it's going to activate that action potential. Um, the stimulus can be inside or outside of your body. And so here's your little nerve endings that are like sticking out on your fingers. This is one that's like literally, I think, on a finger. Most of it's on your skin, right? Like most of your sensory endings are in your skin, but then you also have your ears and your eyes and your mouth and all of that. And then this is another one. So they're going to stimulate an action potential and then um, shoot that out and cause you to have a response. You have different types of cells that can receive that information that are sensory receptors. Photoreceptors, which are in your eyes. Chemoreceptors are in your mouth and your nose, and that detects chemicals. And then mechanoreceptors detect like temperature, pressure, position, like what direction is your head, stuff like that. Oh, here, sorry. Thermoreceptors detect heat and cold. Nociceptors detect pain, and then osmoreceptors detect water, and so that's inside your body. Um, so the nerve impulses are not all the same. They can have different frequency. You're going to have different nerves. They're going to have different shapes. They just depend on where they're at. So this person is able to determine where their body is in space based on these different types of neurons. Okay, so receptors for somatic senses. So remember, those are body senses. You have some like kind of near the body surface. You have some in skeletal muscles, so you can feel like a muscle contraction and feel things. They're in the walls of soft internal organs. And then, of course, your fingertips and tongue and mouth, your lips are really sensitive. Um, and then they get to this one spot in your brain, the somatosensory cortex. So there's one spot that handles all of that information in your cerebrum, which is the big part of your brain, the folded part. Okay, so here's some, yeah, these are different like receptors like Meissner corpuscles are light touch. Merkel discs are steady touch. Um, that might be like wearing, feeling a shirt. Meissner's corpuscle would be like feeling a spider walking on you or a hair on you. Anyway, and then Ruffini is deeper inside and they detect pressure, so not as light touch. Pacinian corpuscles are deep pressure and vibrations, and then also your hair will move and you'll sense that. What is this showing? I don't know what this one is. I think maybe that's where the nerve endings are. I guess like where you would feel pain of those different things, maybe. Okay, so now let's look at taste and smell. These are your chemical sensors. These use chemoreceptors. So gustation is sense of taste. That's the word for it. And then taste buds have taste receptors. You have about 10,000 taste buds. And there's also olfactory receptors, which are chemoreceptors in your nose. So this is what they look like. So this is a little bit of a misconception. See if so you see how this is zooming in on the taste buds, and we tend to think that your taste buds are like the little bumps on your tongue. They're actually not the little bumps. They're actually the little valleys in between the bumps. So this picture here, like this would be a taste bud, or this would be what we called a taste bud. But the taste buds are actually deep inside these little valleys in between each of the bumps. The bumps are called papillae. We often say like, oh, I burned my taste buds. No, you burned your papillae actually. So these are the chemoreceptors, and then they have that sensory neuron. So again, if we look at this picture up here, the taste buds are actually in between these little bumps. Okay, and then also there's different, this is not cut and dry, but there are kind of different regions on the tongue where you can taste different things more, but this varies from person to person. And it's not like you only have salty here and only have sweet here. It's kind of ish. So, okay, so anytime you have a like a specific molecule that elicits a taste, that's called a tastant. So those are just the different chemicals, like salt would be a tastant, or sugar would be a tastant. And different people have different tastants. So we have different sensitivities. All right, now we'll look at hearing. Um, so hearing is a pretty cool process where the sounds are amplified and then they reach the inner ear and the information is sent to the brain. And what we are hearing is different frequencies and amplitudes of a vibration in the air. Like that's actually what you're hearing right now when I'm talking. And so frequency is like how fast these waves move, and amplitude is how high they move. And amplitude is going to give you a louder sound. So that's what we're receiving in our ear. So here's how it works. You've got your outer ear, which is this like weird cartilage fleshy thing that's kind of like a funnel. It's going to funnel the sound in. The sound is going to hit your eardrum, which is going to vibrate like a drum. And then that is going to amplify the sound through these three little bones, the smallest bones in your body. They're going to wiggle at a specific frequency and wavelength. And then that information is going to go into the inner ear, into the cochlea, and it's going to cause these little hairs to wiggle inside your cochlea. Certain hairs in there only wiggle at certain frequencies. And so that will tell the brain what it sounds like. So this part is the middle ear. If you have a middle ear infection, you're looking at from the eardrum to the cochlea, well, to the oval window that goes into the cochlea. Right here is the oval window. And these are the three little bones in your body. And then this little tube coming down is the eustachian tube. So that often can get plugged up. And then that is what causes a middle ear infection where all this gets filled with fluid and you have trouble hearing and it's pushing on your eardrum and maybe your eardrum bursts. So that's all middle ear. Everything outside of the eardrum is your outer ear. It's not just this flap of skin. It's also the tube where you're not supposed to put a Q-tip. And then the cochlea is the middle ear along with these little weird things. These are the little guys that help you with balance. And that's called the semicircular canals. That's also inner ear. Okay, so balance is one function of the ear. And those little semicircular canals they like tell your head where they are. They're like a 3-dimensional level. So they help your head know when it's tilting. This is what they look like. And they have little crystals in there that move around and then they can sense where your head is. But sometimes those crystals can get stuck and then it can cause like a lot of dizziness and vertigo. So, and then down here, this is the cochlea. It looks like a shell and that's the hearing part. So here they're showing the little otoliths are the little crystals and they move like, I don't know, like sand is how I picture them. As you're moving your head around, they're moving inside those little canals, those little like canal things, and then they tell you where you're at. I didn't really show you exactly how the cochlea works, but basically there's a whole bunch of little hairs in here, and they're mechanoreceptors. They wiggle, and certain ones will wiggle at different frequencies. So if you have the right ones wiggling, that's going to send the information to the auditory nerve. To tell it what it heard at what frequency and what wavelengths. You can also get those little hairs broken off, and that is one thing that causes deafness if you listen to loud sounds. So otitis media is ear infection, painful inflammation in the middle ear, like I told you. Tinnitus is when you have that ringing in the ear, and it's usually not like a big deal, but it's super annoying. It can drive you nuts. Deafness is inability to hear. A lot can go wrong to cause that. Okay, so now let's move on to vision. Vision uses photoreceptors, and there's lots going on in the eye, lots of different layers and structures. So let's look at that. If you look at your eye from the side, you have the colored part of your eye, which is called your iris, and that's also a muscle. That's what makes your pupils dilate or constrict. So your pupil is that hole in your iris. It's literally a hole, but it's covered with cornea. Cornea is the outside of your eye. It's like that thick tissue. The white of your eye is called the sclera. So that's this white part. And then you have all these layers inside, and they've got to be tough because they have to keep your eye like, um, like solid and not like collapsing. Um, okay, you also have a lens. So this is the lens that when you're young, you're able to like adjust your lens, the shape of your lens to see close up and far away. When you get older, that gets harder to do, and you can't like zoom in or zoom back out anymore. So that's why older people have to wear reading glasses because their lens can't change shapes. The ciliary muscle attaches to the lens, and that's what helps it change shape, but then the lens gets tough and it can't. Anyway, then in the back of your eye, so this is all filled with fluid, you have your retina. And that's like, when they dilate your eye and they look into your eye, they're looking at the back of your eye to see how it looks. And then back in here is the optic nerve, and that's where the information is sent to your eye. And you have different types of cells here in your retina. You have cells that see color and cells that see light. So I think I probably explained a lot of this. And oh, the image is upside down. That's true. And your brain flips the information. So here is like distance vision, your lens like flattens, and then close vision, your lens like gets bigger. But when people are older, they can't do that anymore. Okay, two different types of cells in the back of your eye and your retina are the rods and cones. Cones see color, rods see dim light. So you have like cones for the three primary light colors. You have like yellow, cyan, and magenta cones. No, that's pigment. Red, green, and blue. No, red, yeah, red, green, and blue. Which sounds wrong, but they make all the colors of the rainbow. Those are the three primary light colors. So you have three different cone type cells that see those. Let's see, I wanted to see if I could show you. Here's rods and cones. So cones see color, rods see dim light. So the light comes in and it stimulates those cells. So the retina is where that happens. Right side intercepts light coming from the left half. The left side intersects light coming from the right half. So they crisscross. Okay, here's some disorders of the eye. You can have red-green color blindness. It's usually in males. It's a sex-linked disorder. Astigmatism is when your corneas are curved funny. Myopia is nearsightedness. That is when you have I tend to call it a long eyeball, like it's longer. I don't think wider is the best way to call it. And then hyperopia is farsightedness where you can't see close. And I usually say that's a shorter eyebrow, like it's squished. Conjunctivitis is inflammation in your conjunctiva. You can get herpes in your eyes. This is the long eye. That's what I call the long eye, where you can't see far. You can only see close. And then the short eye is where you can see far, but you cannot see close. So that's myopia. So myopia is nearsightedness, hyperopia is farsightedness. I like to call them, I think the near and far are confusing because I have to think about it. So I prefer calling it myopia or hyperopia. That's what the doctor's going to call it too. So you can also get eye cancer. So there's two types of eye cancer. You can get cataracts. I just had cataract surgery in January, actually, and I'm not that old. So that's where your lens becomes like messed up and opaque and you can't see through it. And then they put a new lens in. And then macular degeneration is when your retina starts to break down. Glaucoma is when there's too much fluid in there and it's too high a pressure. So it can cause blood vessels to collapse. You can need a corneal transplant, cataract surgery. LASIK is another surgery they do. There's also PRK. They can reshape the cornea using radio waves. If there's a retinal detachment, they can help you with that. So there's just a lot of technologies that can really help you with your vision, but that's your sensory systems.